I had a debate with a guy in the comments. He said I was a novice, basically. He said that every novice knows this, that you can't lower the dumbbells as low as a barbell on a bench press. Let's just grab the 40s because nice and light, so I don't have to worry about injuring myself trying to make a point here. But here we go. 40s, stick the chest out, and boom. Here, you see this? You see the knobs? The bar would have to be sticking right through my chest if I do this with dumbbells, or I mean with a barbell, right? So dumbbells lower than barbell. Now here we have a barbell, right? Let's go average kind of medium wide grip or whatever. Chest out, boom. Right here, you see this? See? I still could go like a little bit farther down. You can see that I'm farther down with the dumbbell because I hit my chest with the bar. Simple logic. I have no clue why this guy's so attached to me being wrong about this. It's crazy. So I have no idea what this guy's talking about. I know maybe on the incline we might be splitting hairs because you can't stick your chest out as much on the incline. And we usually have a tendency to retract the shoulder blades and stick the chest out when you're doing flat bench, which is the proper form, right? Maybe there's some sort of subtleties that are going on in this guy's world that are different than mine. Maybe he's using extremely long dumbbells or the big rubber ones or something and he's hitting himself with it. I don't know. But let's just say, assuming you're using normal dumbbells and you're with a moderate weight, like you're not using the 140s where like the plates are hitting you, and say you're a short ass like I am, like 5'8" or something like that, then there might be an issue there. Then you might not be able to lower the dumbbells as far. But for most people that are above 5'8" or 5'8", I mean, you're gonna notice that you can lower the dumbbells lower than a barbell.
Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Gallant Bodybuilding. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what is more dangerous, the barbell bench or the dumbbell bench. Now, I'm not saying one is more dangerous than the other, to tell you the truth. I'm really not, but I think it would depend on your personal circumstance in which movement works for you or not. And there's no question that a lot of guys have really, harmed themselves doing barbell bench because you are locked into a certain way of pushing. The bar forces you not to be able to move your arms in different directions or move your elbows in certain directions. You have a tendency to be more locked in. So if something does go wrong, it has a tendency to go horribly wrong. Now, with dumbbells though, the example that I just talked about right there was that with dumbbells, you do not have that safety of that bar touching your chest and stopping momentum if you are one of those people that uses that sort of range of motion, right? One could argue that the bar does play a role in stopping the motion, so therefore it may, not for sure, but may reduce the wear and tear on the end of the range of motion when you're powering up from the bottom, which is why I talk about when you are doing dumbbell presses, you probably should be aware more so of your range of motion than even with barbell because you do not have anything stopping you except for the joint capsule. That's the scary thing, right? If your joint capsule just tears, that's a dislocation or a problem. Trust me, I know from my hockey injury, it's definitely not an injury you want to ever have. I'm still working around it after 20 years of having the injury pretty much. So what I'm gonna say to you is that barbell bench can be more dangerous in circumstances where you're lifting 1 rep maxes and you're locked in and say something goes wrong. Because there is a tendency to be able to use heavier weight because there's less stability involved, right? And at the same time, if you are not engaging the delts properly and you're flaring the elbows, you'll be putting a lot of stress on the pec tendons, and that force has nowhere to go except for on those tendons. Now, if you're using proper bench form, such as the elbows a little bit tucked, not extremely, but just a bit, you are going to notice that the delt comes into play a little bit more, so you're distributing those forces over a few different muscles and tendons, and therefore you alleviate some of the risk of injury. Not all, but some of it, right? Now with dumbbells, and we've all seen this, I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen guys who injured themselves doing dumbbell bench, doing extreme weight and stuff. The thing is, one risk that dumbbells can pose for some people is getting them into positioning in the first place with heavy weights. If they don't have that groove down, sometimes something can go wrong where one arm goes kind of weird or externally rotates more so than it should, and they can't pull it back, and therefore they may tweak a rotator cuff. The other thing is that they may have a strength imbalance, one arm stronger than the other, and therefore one arm just suddenly gives out. I knew one guy who told me about when he was doing 140s on the dumbbell bench, and one of his elbows gave out, and it just collapsed right into his chest, and I guess the angle that it hit him on broke some of his ribs. So it was a pretty extreme injury, right? And even years later when he touched dumbbell benches, he was very wary of them at that point, right? Understandably so. So what I'm gonna say is that if you are doing dumbbell benches, a few things you wanna watch out for is that you do not have the barbell stopping you at the bottom when you're doing dumbbells. So you have to be aware of that bottom range of motion to make sure you're not banging off the joints. You know, you're not bang, bang, you know, like bouncing off those labrums. At the same time, because the pecs are more involved with dumbbells, because you are including a little bit more of an arcing motion, because with barbell, your hand is locked in one position, so it goes straight up and down. So one could argue that with dumbbells, there is a little bit more pec contraction because there's a little bit more internal movement under tension. Now, right at the top here, it's just like a guy walking on those poles. You know, those circus clowns, they walk on the poles. There's really not much tension here. But from here to here, there's still some tension, right? And one could argue that you get that little bit of extra contraction in the pecs during the dumbbell press. Now, because of this, because the pecs are engaged with a little bit more constant tension, one could say that perhaps there's a bit more stress on the bottom on the pec tendons when you come down. So that's another thing to watch out for. So I always say when you're doing dumbbell bench presses or presses in general anyway, make sure you come down slowly for the first few warm-ups and maybe for the first rep or two that you're doing your heavier weight. Like, for sure do that. Maybe you do that all the time, that's fine too. But if you do faster repetitions, make sure that you do the lowering of the weight a bit slower, especially for the warm-ups and especially for the first few reps of heavy weight. And this will assist your body with getting ready for that tension and that stretch. And at the same time, if there is a tweak that's really weird or a muscle pull of some sort, because I've had that before, then your body has time to warn you, and then you can at least massage it out, warm it up in some way, you know, doing some extra stretching, or call it a day and say, this is not the day for me to be doing chest exercises, right? So that's really important. So again, I'm gonna say you're gonna have to pay attention to which movement tends to tweak you more. I'd say barbell bench tends to tweak the shoulders more for a lot of people, and dumbbell bench tends to, let's just say, pull or tweak the tendons in the pec a little bit more, or maybe the rotator cuff under the lower part. It depends how you do it. There's no absolute, I don't think there's an absolute answer on this, but if you do find that one causes a little bit more issues than the other, just make sure that you're more conservative with your warm-ups. Make sure that you adjust your technique as needed and really pay attention to that range of motion and make sure that you're not just following some sort of dogmatic thing that is tweaking the shit out of you. So that's my answer on that. So yeah, one thing's for sure though, you can do extra range of motion on dumbbell press, especially the flat bench. On the incline, no, maybe not, because your chest is not sticking out so much. And that's where the mix-up came last video, where the guy was watching me do incline bench presses. So that's all the footage I had that was recent. So because of that, he mixed up the fact that you couldn't do full range of motion on dumbbell or whatever. So anyway, all that aside, flat bench, you're gonna have a little bit more range of motion with dumbbells as opposed to barbell. So yeah, I hope this helps out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching. If you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalgallantbodybuilding.com, and thanks to the patient supporters, and take care for now. Mountain. Natural Gallant.